In this video, we will show you step by step how to make mushroom pocket pizzas at home with the help of an adult. Before we begin cooking, there are 3 things you want to make sure you do. The first is wash your hands with soap and warm water. You want to wash your hands for about 20 seconds. This is long enough to sing happy birthday twice. You also want to tie back any long hair. You want to tie back your hair so that it doesn't fall into the food you're making. You also don't want to be more likely to touch your hair. Touching your hair and then touching the food you are cooking can spread bacteria to the food. Long hair can also get caught in kitchen tools or be burned, which is dangerous. Finally, you want to make sure to clean your cooking surfaces. It's important to keep your worktops, cutting boards, and other surfaces that we use to cook clean because they touch the food that you're going to eat. If they aren't properly cleaned, bacteria could get into the food and make you sick. First, you'll want to assemble all the ingredients you'll need for the recipe. A recipe is a set of instructions for preparing a particular dish, including a list of the ingredients. Ingredients are the foods, herbs, or spices we need to combine to make a dish. The ingredients you need are 6 ounces of button mushrooms, 6 ounces of baby Bella mushrooms, 10 empanada dough discs, which come frozen and need to be defrosted overnight in the fridge before making your recipe, half a cup of pizza sauce, 8 ounces of mozzarella cheese, 2.5 teaspoons of grated Parmesan cheese, 10 fresh basil leaves, and 1 teaspoon of dried oregano. Most of the equipment you'll need to use is shown here. You'll need an oven. You'll also need 8 small bowls to hold the ingredients you'll use when you assemble your pocket pizzas. If you don't have small bowls, you can use cupcake liners instead. In addition, you'll need a mushroom brush or a paper towel to clean off the mushrooms, a cutting board or a paper plate, a child-safe knife, a baking sheet, parchment paper, a 1-cup liquid measure, a measuring spoon set including 1 tablespoon, 1 teaspoon, half a teaspoon, and 1/4 teaspoon, a box grater for the mozzarella cheese, scissors, and plates and forks that will be used to serve the finished pockets. Next, you'll want to have an adult preheat the oven to 425 degrees Fahrenheit so that it's hot and ready to go. Next, you'll want to begin assembling the different ingredients you'll need for your pocket pizzas. The main ingredient is the mushrooms. You'll want to start by getting the dirt off of all your mushrooms. This can be done a couple of different ways. You can use a paper towel to brush the dirt off. You can use a clean dish towel to brush the dirt off. You can also use a mushroom brush, or you can rinse the mushrooms under running water. If you decide to use a paper towel, take 1 mushroom at a time and use a clean paper towel to brush all the dirt off of each mushroom. This might take some time, but you want to go carefully as you don't want any dirt left on the mushrooms when you go to cut them up and add them to your pocket pizzas. Take 1 mushroom at a time and brush the dirt off carefully. Next, you'll use a child-safe knife to cut the mushrooms. You'll want to begin by cutting the stem off of the bottom of each mushroom. This creates a flat surface. It's much easier and safer to cut the mushrooms when they have a flat surface underneath. As you finish cutting each mushroom, take the pieces and add them to a microwave-safe bowl for later. You'll want to be careful because child-safe knives can still cut you. This means you should curl your fingers under and away from the knife as you cut. This keeps your fingers safe and allows you to cut safely and efficiently. Continue placing the finished pieces in a microwave-safe bowl as you cut. Some mushrooms may have a very short stem or no stem at all. On those mushrooms, you won't need to cut the stem off first, and you can just lay the mushroom flat and cut it into pieces. Keep cutting the mushrooms until you've cut all your mushrooms into pieces. After all your mushrooms have been cut and added to your microwave-safe bowl, you'll want to place the bowl in the microwave for 3 minutes. You may need an adult's help for this step. After 3 minutes, carefully remove the microwave-safe dish from the microwave. You may want to have an adult do this because it might be very hot. It's important to use a microwave-safe dish so it doesn't possibly melt. Carefully give the mushrooms a good stir and then add the microwave-safe dish back into the microwave again for another 3 minutes. Doing so will ensure the mushrooms are evenly cooked before we add them to our pocket pizzas. In the next step, with the help of an adult, strain the liquid from the mushrooms. Be careful, as the bowl could be heavy and it will be hot. After straining the liquid from your mushrooms, set the mushrooms aside in a smaller bowl to be used when you assemble your pocket pizzas. In the next step, you'll measure out 1/4 cup of pizza sauce to be used when you assemble your pocket pizzas. Have a small bowl ready, along with your jar of pizza sauce and your 1/4 cup measure. Open up your jar of pizza sauce, and you can either use a spoon to measure it, or if it's easier, you can pour your sauce straight into the measuring cup. Once you have 1/4 cup measured out, go ahead and pour it into your small bowl. You'll set this aside for later, and you'll use it at your station when you assemble your pocket pizzas. Next, you will use a box grater to shred the mozzarella cheese. Grating is to make small pieces by rubbing on something like a box grater. You'll want to be careful here because the holes are very sharp and can easily cut your fingers. The holes are used to break food into small pieces called shreds. To keep your fingers safe, keep them tucked under so that you don't cut yourself. And you can ask for help from an adult when the pieces of cheese get much smaller. You want to make sure you place a cutting board or a plate underneath the box grater to catch the shreds of cheese. Once you've shredded the entire block of cheese, transfer it to a smaller bowl to use for later when you assemble your pocket pizzas. Don't shred as quickly as shown in the video. This clip is sped up. Keep shredding until all the cheese has been shredded, and remember to keep your fingers safe as you go. The next step will be to cut your basil leaves into strips using a pair of scissors. However, first you'll want to wash your scissors since you don't know what they could have been used for before you go to cut your basil leaves. Use hot water and soap to give them a good wash before you go to cut your leaves. After washing your scissors, carefully dry them with a paper towel. You may want to have an adult do this next step. Use either rubbing alcohol and a paper towel or an alcohol wipe to carefully wipe down the blades of the scissors. You'll want to do this to further sanitize your scissors before you go to cut your basil leaves. Again, it may be a good idea to have an adult do this step because the scissors are sharp and could cut you. Either way, be careful. After your scissors have been washed and sanitized, you'll use them to cut your basil leaves into strips. Again, you'll want to be careful on this step as you're using scissors and they could cut you. You may find it easier to fold some of your leaves in half, as this might make it a little bit faster when you cut the leaves into strips. You also might want to leave some of the longer stems off, but that's up to you. As you go, you'll cut your strips into your bowl to be set aside to use later when you assemble your pocket pizzas. Again, if you don't have a bowl, you can place your strips into a cupcake liner or even on a paper towel until you need them later. This will take some time, but don't rush as you're using scissors and you want to be careful. Next, fill a small bowl with water to be used as glue to hold the dough of your empanadas together. Next, you'll measure 2½ teaspoons of shredded Parmesan cheese into a bowl. Start by using your 1 teaspoon measure to measure out a teaspoon of cheese. After that, add 1 more teaspoon, and in this particular measure, I can slide it so it'll measure ½ teaspoon. Fill that up and add it to your bowl. You'll set the bowl aside to be used later when you assemble your pocket pizzas. Next, use your teaspoon measure to measure out 1 teaspoon of dried oregano. Place this into your bowl or your cupcake liner if you don't have a bowl to be used later. Next, you'll assemble your pocket pizza. Start by laying out one defrosted empanada dough disc on a cutting board. Then, measure out 1 teaspoon of your pizza sauce. Place the sauce in the middle of the dough, and you can use the back of a spoon to spread the sauce evenly in the center. You'll want to make sure you leave about a 1/2 inch border around the outside to allow your empanada disc to close. After adding the sauce and spreading it evenly, you'll want to measure out 2 tablespoons of your cooked mushrooms. Use your tablespoon measure to measure out 1 tablespoon, add it to the center, and then go ahead and measure out a 2nd tablespoon and add that. Next, again, you'll use the tablespoon measure to measure out a tablespoon of your shredded mozzarella cheese. This will go on top of your mushrooms. Next, use your teaspoon measure to measure out 1/4 of a teaspoon of your shredded Parmesan cheese. This might be a little tricky because it's a pretty small amount, but do your best. Add this cheese to the top of your mozzarella cheese. Next, go ahead and add 2 to 3 basil strips. After that, you'll add your dried oregano, just a pinch with your fingers. Then you'll use your fingers to dip them in the water and spread the water all the way around the edge of the empanada dough. This will create a glue so that when you fold everything in half, the dough will stick to itself and nothing will squeeze out during the cooking process. Finally, you'll want to fold the dough in half, carefully, trying to keep everything inside. And then you'll want to pick up your fork and use it to create a seal around the edge of the dough. Carefully use the fork to create a nice, tight seal all the way around the edge. You don't want to leave any spots open. When you're done with that, you've finished assembling your pocket pizza. Now you'll want to transfer your pocket pizza onto your baking sheet. You might need an adult's help to do this. The dough might be a little sticky, so carefully use a spatula to transfer the dough from your cutting board onto the parchment paper. If you'd like, you can take a pencil and write your name on the parchment paper next to your pocket. That way you'll know which one is yours. Assemble the rest of your pockets and place them all on the parchment paper on your baking tray. Next, you'll want to take your tray of completed pockets and place them in the oven that was preheated to 425 degrees Fahrenheit. You'll want to bake them for about 12 to 17 minutes or until they're golden brown. You may need an adult's help for this step as the oven will be very hot and you should use oven mitts. If you'd like, while your pockets are in the oven, you can heat up some dipping sauce. Measure out 1/4 cup of pizza sauce into a liquid measuring cup. You can either use a spoon or pour it directly into the cup. Here, I've poured it directly into a microwave-safe measuring cup. Heat up your sauce in your microwave-safe dish for 30 seconds. When it's done, have an adult help you remove it from the microwave, as it may be hot. When your pockets are done baking, allow them to cool for about 10 minutes so the sauce and the cheese don't burn your tongue. They'll be very hot. Then, enjoy your finished product. We learned a lot about cooking today. We learned how to follow a recipe, and we practiced proper and safe techniques used to grate cheese using a box grater. We also used clean scissors to cut instead of a knife. We also used many different types of measuring cups and spoons to measure the ingredients. We also made a pocket pizza recipe station. We learned that it's easier to cook when you have all your ingredients ready to go. Now it's your turn. You can be a chef at home. A chef is someone who cooks food, and kids like you can be chefs too. Use your recipe at home to follow the steps in the demo to become a healthy helper to make your own pocket pizza at home with the help of an adult. Enjoy!